And my name's Micah Pollock. Yes, I agree to be recorded so we can make this available to other folks. We are so excited. We have a big support team here to really highlight this Where I'm From poem and many people's use of it to build relationship and share complex identities. And we really want this whole series to feel like a support network for educators right now who are doing the crucial work of accurate and inclusive teaching. And we are really excited to highlight educators who have been working with this poem for the first time for many years, along with the original poet herself. And we are also a big support team with The Conscious Kid, with Schooltalking, with USvsHate, with the National Writing Project. And we are here to support you. So thanks for joining us. On the next slide, just want to say how crucial it is right now to work with tools like this poem, and how excited we are to offer it and discuss it as one tool of many. This need right now to share complex identities and build relationship, and to do so in any medium. Of course, these are several messages made by young people in the USvsHate project that are now posters and stickers sharing sort of inclusive sentiments and complex ideas. But this medium of poetry, really excited about it. Ramon, can I invite you to introduce The Conscious Kid, and especially your role in promoting the role of literature?
Yes, thank you so much, Mike. It's such a privilege to be here. And, you know, I can't think of a more timely moment than now when it comes to understanding one another, how to build relationships. And that's what, you know, creating this inclusive literature is about. So all students from all communities can feel supported. And it's just really a privilege to be able to share this space with all of you.
Fabulous. And now I want to hand it over to Sarah from the California Reading and Literature Project, who's going to facilitate from here forward for a bit.
Well, it is my sincere pleasure to welcome our star poet of the evening, George L. Lyon, who is the author of the Where I'm From poem that you will get to know very well this evening, and a Kentucky Poet Laureate. So without further ado, George L. Lyon, please introduce us to how you came to Where I'm From with some backstory. And please, we can't wait to hear you live read your poem.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be working with you folks. And I certainly wouldn't be here at this moment without the work of countless teachers who have used this poem, who have handed it on, who have sent me the work of their students and the work of community groups and so many people. It's pretty much unbelievable what's happened with this poem. My poem started with a poem by Tennessee poet Joe Carson. And Joe's book, Stories I Ain't Told Nobody Yet, is full of what she calls the people pieces. These are poems that started with something somebody said. So Joe heard this person, she made her poem, I read Joe's poem, and I made my poem. So and then my poem says it's from the Pass It On, I'm from the Pass It Ons. And so it has been that from the very beginning. I started writing it in this journal. And I was actually teaching in a summer program at Radford, where April teaches now, when I wrote it.
Hi, baby. Hi. Oh, the bees, say hey, don't forget about me. Here you go. He's a red one. She wants to play tennis. Oh, Lordy, don't get her started.
Can we have whoever that is mute
She'll
yourself,
jump through the
please?
window. She's like, yes, please.
So it began on this page, and I wrote it over several weeks, not like a usual poem. I wasn't trying to write the final draft. I was trying to collect lines. And that's part of what makes it work, is that it's a list. And so to show students that I didn't just write it at one time, and to talk about the process of revision, I made this scroll by copying and taping all the different versions together. And so I really edited this poem, and it took the pressure off. It opened something up for me, and it was so much fun that I decided to try it in a workshop for teachers, and that was in 1994. So when I did it with the teachers, they were so excited by the poems that they wrote that they took it to their classrooms. And the internet really wasn't working the way it does today. So it wasn't the part of our lives that it is now. So they were really handing it on paper, teacher to teacher. And before long, I had stacks and stacks of Where I'm From, poems from kids from first grade on. And then it went on. Where I'm From went to college. And I wrote a book, a handbook for new poets called Where I'm From, Where Poems Come From. And this too helped get the word out. And a series called The United States of Poetry with Bob Holman featured this poem. So that was another way. It was on PBS. That's another way the poem was seeded. And I think that was what was supposed to happen somehow, because I certainly I couldn't have conceived of that. I wouldn't have known how to do it or been able to do it. It's kind of a miracle. It's about the power of poetry, the importance of place, and the need that we all have for a voice to stand in our story and speak from our hearts. And poetry gives us that place. If we can only be invited in the right way, and I think that's where all our differences are welcome, so that we can, and through that we can see also how the differences make us rich, how the same things make us connected. So here's my poem, and the only thing that needs explanation is the term carbon tetrachloride, which is a chemical used in spot removing, because my father was a dry cleaner. So we thought it was a friend. It actually is carcinogenic, but we didn't know that.
Georgella, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make a quick note for participants. You can see on the screen, there is a QR code that will take you to a digital text set. And here, hopefully with my highlighter, you can see that I am clicking here, or I'm showing you here, Georgella's website. It'll take you to the page if you want to follow along with the text of Where I'm From. And Angela will go ahead and drop a physical link to this digital text set as well.
Okay. Where I'm from. I'm from clothespins, from Clorox and carbon tetrachloride. I am from the dirt under the back porch, black, glistening. It tasted like beets. I am from the forsythia bush, the Dutch elm, whose long gone limbs I remember as if they were my own. I'm from fudge and eyeglasses, from Imogene and Alifair. I'm from the know-it-alls and the pass-it-ons, from perk up and pipe down. I'm from He restoreth my soul with a cotton ball lamb, and 10 verses I can say myself. I'm from Artemis and Billy's branch, fried corn and strong coffee. From the finger my grandfather lost to the auger, the eye my father shut to keep his sight. Under my bed was a dress box, spilling old pictures, a sift of lost faces to drift beneath my dreams. I am from those moments, snapped before I budded, leaf fall from the family tree. So only the very last stanza of that poem did I write in the way I work on other poems, because I was trying to bring it to a close. But it had been open until then, and that was the wonder of it. When it did go up on the internet, and when I began doing workshops with the National Writing Project, it just went everywhere. And I've gotten poems from all over the world. I've found videos of multi-generational, of like a family where I'm from. It's just got a world life. It was needed somehow, and I am lucky enough to be the person who did my part in it. And I hope that this will help offer that invitation to speak your own voice to other people. So I'm happy to be able to share it with you tonight.
Oh my goodness, there is no substitute. As I read in chat, to hear it read live, analog/digital. I mean, I feel like it's the closest we'll get to analog. So let's get into all of these voices. We're about to watch a compilation of middle schoolers. It's a brief 2-minute video of Where I'm From poetry. And I want you to keep this in mind as we watch. So here is a purpose for watching. How, if at all, does this sharing of self feel different from what we typically do in schools today? So many of us build community, but what is distinct about what we see in Where I'm From? Go ahead and watch.
I'm Rachel Martin, and this is Poets in Chairs Sipping Tea.
And I'm Kwame Alexander. We asked listeners to write a Where I'm From poem.
Right. So you were supposed to do this Where I'm From, drawing on all 5 senses, sharing your own remembrances, and using those memories of the people and places you came from to craft a poem.
I am from a home of sadness but love, a home where happiness flies like a dove.
I'm from smart and courageousness.
I am from watercolor paintings strewn about the house.
I am from oversized t-shirts.
I am from the butterscotch candies that Grandpa saved just for me.
I am from the house with the basketball hoop in the front yard.
The old swing set my father and Grandpa built with their bare hands.
I am from the barn in the backyard.
From the blackberry bushes pollinated by my yellow striped friends.
I am from sports.
From practice makes perfect.
From the fearless joy of believing in myself.
I'm from the state of Ohio,
Salt Lake City, and Lagos Island.
Indonesia, Michigan, and Missouri.
I'm from snowstorms in April.
I'm from the house in the plains, tall, white, and beautiful.
I am from extreme love.
I'm from random jokes that make everyone laugh.
I am from the place where a fire once blazed.
Colorful walls filled with light and laughter.
I am from pizza
and hot Cheetos.
I am from many art kits and walls of gray.
I am from writing,
peppermints on Christmas, blue eyes, and blonde hair.
I am from the mind, from Amazon and Microsoft.
I am from PlayStation 4,
the maple tree, its branches spreading above like a swishing, swaying dome.
I am from home, love, and food.
Random outbursts of Hamilton songs and Friday movie nights on a red couch.
I am from a girl who fell in love with stories but fell out of love with reality.
I'm from all of these memories.
I'm just going to go ahead and pause that there to give us some time to process what we saw. Take a moment and drop in chat. What was different per our purpose for watching? What's different about this building community and sharing of self than what we typically see and do in our schools today? I wanted to see everyone's faces, so I stopped sharing. Personal, specific stories, truly complex. More in common than we realize. Authenticity. Authentic dialogue. Oh, a family connection. So that reaching out to our community. Student-led. Tremendous. Authentic student voice. Heart. There's no wrong way to do this. You show up as you. Vulnerability. So if you haven't already read through that chat, go over and peek at what your colleagues are saying. Some really, really nice thoughts coming in. We're going to go ahead and move on into
is Poets in Chairs Sipping Tea.
So if you haven't already, please go ahead and use this QR code that's on the screen. I know I saw in the chat, many of us were sharing the physical link because we are going to engage in some self-exploration. Now, normally those of you that are maybe HyperDoc or multimedia tech set savvy, awesome, you're coming with some great background knowledge. You might know that you normally have more than 5 minutes, but our time is precious and we really want to maximize our collaborative discussion this evening. So you're just going to dip your toe into this multimedia tech set. I'm bringing your attention here to the landing page. So these first couple of cells are more, how do you get in contact with the organization, programmatic deadlines, etc. For our USvsHate contest, which we'll be talking about in a moment. Our poet laureate here, George Ella's material is delineated by this divider. And on page 2 of this HyperDoc, we have a myriad of examples. So I put in red the video we just watched, and I've labeled and organized all of the examples by whether it's a video, a website, a blog. I've also put in the description how long the video is so you can gauge your time accordingly. What you're going to do is take 5 minutes to click around, find some examples that you're particularly drawn to, and have ready, when I say waterfall in 5 minutes, an example, a line from another Where I'm From poem that you found particularly compelling. So we're going to go ahead and put on some music, I hope. 5 minutes to explore. That means we'll be back at 4:25 when we come back with Waterfall. Thank you. You're going to be able to access this digital text set for all time. So we hope that this just whet your appetite and allowed you to dig your toe in. Go ahead and get ready and chat a line you felt particularly compelling. And when I say waterfall, please at that point hit enter or return. So you're typing in chat. And on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, waterfall. I am from tomorrow. Ending with dreams. There are book recommendations, the know-it-alls and the pass it on. The bilingual examples in the template. I am from the traveling bag of ungraded papers. I felt that one. We have others noticing the bilingual Where I'm From offerings. Yes, Georgella was generous to point us in many, many different directions for this incredible resource for you to continue to come back to. So we hope we immersed you. We're going to take 10 minutes. So George, Ella, we are counting on you to keep us to time. 10 minutes. Lead us in how we can now create a where we're from poem.
Okay. Well, first of all, you can't do this wrong. If you're writing, you're right. You're the authority on your experience, and you're the one with the words to say it in. So when I look at my poem, there's several categories of experience, and your poem isn't limited in this way. But just to point out a few of them, there's the plants in the backyard, the tree that I love, the forsythia bush. There's eating the dirt under the back porch. I read somewhere that's because I'm Appalachian and we were so poor we ate dirt. Well, no. It's because to get in the club that met under the porch, you had to eat a spoonful of dirt. So there are little stories embedded in where I'm from poems. The food that is your family food, the sayings from your family, like perk up and pipe down, from whatever spiritual practice your family had. That's where the cotton ball lamb comes in. Place names. I'm surprised there are no songs mentioned in this poem, because music is such a big part, was such a big part of my life, has always been such a big part. Family names. The clothing, I don't have clothes in here, but clothes are a kind of memory ticket, to certain moments in your life. So what I'm inviting you to do is to just begin. And remember, you're not writing a poem, you're making a list. And at another time, this list can grow, and you'll come to it different days with different, with different feelings and different memories. And you gather all that, and you see that you have a wealth of material. You don't have a blank page. You have a wealth of these lines, and then you can organize them and choose from them, and then shape it. Decide where it begins and where it ends, and how to shape it in between. But you're not writing with a chisel. So these don't have to be the words. These are some words. These are some words that are steps toward the poem that you will make. So what I'm inviting you to do in this time we have tonight, or I guess it's afternoon where you are. In Kentucky, it's night. What I'm inviting you to do is to write down 3 lines and let them come to you in any order, and don't judge them. Here's an important thing. You are not the editor when you are writing a draft. You are the receiver of the messages from your heart and your mind, from your memory and your and the images that will arise out of your experience. So don't censor yourself. Don't judge yourself. Just let what happens happen. So I want you to do that, to get those first 3 lines. If more lines come, don't let me stop you. But don't worry if they seem like they're in the right order, because that's not going to be the order. But get those 3 lines Then choose the one which has the most energy for you right now, that surprises you, or that stirs you and you feel drawn to. And then put that line not in the chat, but on the Padlet. And Sarah can tell you how to do that. Oh, I think it's come up in the chat that we can click on, and there you are. So I'm going to do this too. I've
I feel like we may have. But that's all right. The show will go on, and yes. So what you're about to do is we've put the link to the Padlet in the chat a couple of times. And we have this QR code for quick scanning and then doing on your phone, if that's your jam. Once you're there, the key, find that pink circle with a white plus sign, addition sign in it. So it'll look like this. Look for that and click that. Once you're there, you can't go wrong. Micah, would you let us know at what time should we conclude adding to the Padlet?
Great point. Our goal here is to put some lines on here so we can experience this, and so that George Ella, if we get her back, can construct one poem of our lines to read at the very end of our session. We do have 3 sets of folks who have used this poem in their work, and we want to give them time. So let's give ourselves just, why don't you everybody put 1 line on there instead of 3. And let's give ourselves 3 minutes to write it so we have time for dialogue. How does that feel? Great.
All right. Thank you. So at 4:37, we'll transition to our collaborative dialogue with our practitioners. we go. I hope you're taking a moment to refresh so that you can read from your colleagues. Amazing what can be accomplished in Where I'm From in simply 3 minutes. So we'll return to our shared poetry after we get into some group dialogue. And then I'm going to invite, while I'm changing screen, to Ramon from The Conscious Kid to go ahead and MC.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we are going to transition into a brief group discussion here. I'm here with Steve, Amanda, April, and Artemisa. And just for those who don't know, Steve and Amanda are directors of City Lore and NYC. April has been teaching for over 20 years and has used the Where I'm From poem in many classes, both high school and college. And Artemisa is using this poem for the first time, so it'll help provide insight for teachers who are new to this work. So we're just going to pose a question. Maybe each of you just take a minute or two to respond, and then we can just go from there. So the question that we want to ask you all is, how have you used Where I'm From successfully to build relationships and share complex identities in different demographic contexts?
Do you want to talk about that? Go ahead.
I run actually the education programs at City Lore, and so I've done this poem very successfully with professional development with teachers throughout the country. And so in rural areas, in urban areas, in suburban areas, and it's really interesting to read those poems and compare them. I also use them in the K through 12 schools, at public schools that I work with in New York City, and I always have to be very conscious of what the population of the students is in the classes where I work. We have students who are immigrants, and their ideas of where they're from are very complex based on where they originally came from, where they are now, where they feel most at home. And we also have refugees, and that's a very different kind of experience. We work with children who are homeless and living in shelters. So we always have to be sort of open to inviting them to think about things that are important to them, or people that have been important to them, experiences that are important, but not necessarily tying it to a home in the case of kids who have been disrupted from their homes, unless that's where they want to go. But it's always been something. And then at the end, we usually combine lines like we're doing here from all the poems, just to get a sense of the diversity of experiences that we have in the group that we're working with.
I've taught Where I'm From in 2 big types of classrooms, the ones that are primarily creative writing oriented, such as like summer enrichment for juniors and seniors in high school on down to 5th graders. But I've also taught it as a part of a literary class as well. I've taught it in American literature. I've taught it in Appalachian literature. And when I do that, it's usually part of several poems from the Appalachian region. It's really important in my case to make sure that some of the students are able to recognize their own heritage and background beyond the stereotypes, many of them negative, which the Appalachian region is often saddled with. And poems like L Lyon's and Joe Carson's, but also writers like Diane Gilliam, who wrote Kettle Bottom, which is another collection of persona voices and poems, and writers like Frank X. Welker, who is identified as Afro-Latin because he has a background that's specifically African-American in Appalachia. I'll often go ahead and teach these all together But one thing I always do, whether it's in a creative writing classroom or a literary one, is I will go ahead and ask the students themselves to do a Where I'm From poem. It not only brings literature classes to life, but suddenly I have these students from all different backgrounds, Appalachian, Caribbean, European. They become more connected through the intimate details of this poem and being able to try it themselves. I can watch a kind of empathy bloom across many of these students.
Hi, everyone. I'm Artemisa, and I am teaching 4th grade this year in a dual language setting. So the majority of my instruction takes place in Spanish. And I have students who speak Spanish as their native language and students who speak English and some students who speak other languages as well. So language rich setting. And this was the first year that I used this poem, and I'm planning on using it from here on out because it's truly wonderful, as we can all see. And so what was neat about using it for the first time in this dual language setting with my current class of students is that as we analyzed the poem, they had a lot of questions about, like, what are some of my family sayings, or what are some of my family stories? And so it led to this authentic, rich dialogue with their families and asking them, tell me a story about my grandpa, or tell me a story about my grandma. And so it really just created for this wonderful opportunity to do something that had a context and that allowed for them to really come up with something unique and beautiful that had to do with themselves, and gave them the opportunity to share with their friends, with their classmates, and also bringing the family into the picture as well. So that's one more thing to add was the language component. I loved how many of my students were curious about, well, my saying is in Spanish. Is it okay if of course, it allowed for a lot of flexibility with the language, so that they could bring in their the Spanish or even other languages as well.
So I'm Steve Zeitlin. I work with Amanda here at City Lore, and I've also taught at Cooper Union for quite a long time. And one of the things that I found so interesting was that I would always get students to go around and say why they took the class and where they're from and what brought them here. And they always went around and answered that question. And then I would have them write a Where I'm From poem. And the difference, between how each of them related to the others and how you could remember all the people in the classroom was just transformed. And it was just entirely different from the introductions that I asked them to give originally. And I've always felt that this poem has such magical qualities by bringing out the kind of ineffable and resonant details that we tried to use it in a very self-conscious way to span political beliefs in a project that we did that we're adapting now as an educational project, but wasn't originally. And if Sarah wants to just show the Across the Great Divide, you can kind of explore it on your own, but maybe you can just take a look at it here, what we tried to do. Basically, we took this idea of Across the Great Divide to bring out the individuality and common humanity of Americans from different ages and genders and parts of the country. And the idea was to get people to share their political beliefs on this hand that you would color in, and then write an I Am From poem, and then exchange postcards. So if you click on Create Your Own Postcard, I'll try to, just to give you a sense, we colored in human being, and then you can click on concern for police brutality or pro-life or liberal or conservative or traditional marriage, and color it in all different ways. You can try clicking on it. If Sarah, if you would just click on it, you'll see, so. And then you go to, if you go down and just click on flip to back of postcard, and we reference George Ella's poem. And if you click off of that, you click on the X, you then get to write your own poem, and you then get to send it to somebody, as well as to give us permission to use it. And I'll put the URL in the chat so you can enjoy this and try it out on your own, and if you want to do it. But I also want to tell you how we're thinking about it moving forward, as we try to think about it as an educational program. What we're trying to do in conjunction with the folks that are running the USvsHate contest is to create a story map of the United States. George Ella has done this actually for Kentucky, to create a story map with all these poems, and to show that even in, that all kinds of perspectives live in states that are red and that are blue and that are purple, that are rural, that are urban, that are coastal, and to try to use it to try to show that there's a kind of humanity crossing lines and crossing perspectives. And we hope that through this program, staying in touch with you, maybe some of your students would want to upload some of their poems to the story map once we get it going. So I wanted to just share that with you. And as I've always said, God is in the details, but so are you. We're all in our details. And the way in which I look at it is that I am not my label. We want people to say, okay, I'm not my pronoun, I am not my race, I'm not my gender, I am something distinctive beyond that. And I think the poem gives us a way of doing that and sharing that common humanity. And I'll put the URL in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Amanda and Steve. And just to pose a question to the group, what's some of the things that's been easy or challenging about this? And why do you feel this work is so necessary today?
Well, I mean, we live in such a divided country, and people are kind of retreating behind their labels. And I think this is a way for people to come out of that. And also we're marketed to so tremendously through, giant corporations that are advertising to us all the time. And it's so important for us to teach children that where they're coming from and who they are, apart from what they buy or what kind of car they have, or what are the kind of marketing symbols of our society. So I think that's, it's wonderful to be able to do, and it's not as easily done as you might imagine, because people we've discovered are not that willing to share their political beliefs, and they're, if they don't feel those political beliefs are shared by you, they don't necessarily want to share them with you. So that's one of the challenges of doing this, but we've also, been able to do some wonderful things with it too.
Artemisa, April, any challenges or things that you found that went particularly well when doing this?
Well, in some of our planning meetings, I mentioned one of my favorite stories to come out of this. I was teaching an American literature class, and one of the students was a sophomore who'd actually come from Britain. And he was very resistant to some of the literature that we've been doing in that class. For example, we had been doing a section on the Harlem Renaissance. And even though we were looking at work like Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes, and we've been looking at some of the social issues of the time period. He resisted that. He was like, we hear about this stuff all the time. This has nothing to do with me. I'm sick and tired of hearing about it in America. And then we did some of the Appalachian readings, just some excerpts from writers, again, like Joe Carson, some excerpts from Stories I Ain't Told Nobody Yet, and Georgella. And among those poems was Where I'm From. And we did do that in class. And he stayed after that day to tell me that it had clicked for him, basically. He had felt touched by these poems, even though he was coming in from Britain. He was like, these are my people. He came from a lower class background. He came from a background where he too felt stereotyped. And like one of the things that he was maddest about was ever since he had come over, he kept having people make jokes about his teeth being bad because he was from Britain. And of course, English people couldn't have great teeth. Okay, this young man had some of the most spectacular, glowing white teeth I've ever seen on a human being, first off. But the stereotypes that this group had encountered resonated with him. Being able to talk about his experiences and his frustrations in a creative writing exercise, even though we were in a literary class, that reached him. And once he literally crossed the ocean with that writing, the other stuff began to open up too. And I think that can be the power of experiencing different regions, different cultures, and getting that first-hand experience like you get with teaching Georgella's poem. That opened him up to a kind of empathy that just lecturing wouldn't have done.
Awesome. Thank you so much, April. And thank you to all the fabulous speakers that were sharing their experiences in the classroom. I'm going to pass the mic now back to Georgella, who is now going to read excerpts from the poem that was put together. So thank you again for everyone.
Georgella, do we have you back? Not yet. While we wait for Georgella, maybe Steve, you can text Georgella. Let's invite you to some follow-up. So let's go to the next slide. We also have breakout rooms where you can come talk with our presenters more to learn more about what they were doing, ask your questions. We'll spend the last half hour after the hour on that. So stick around to join us in conversation and learning. There are several places that we want to invite you to amplify your students' voices if you choose to engage in this poem. One of them is to consider submitting to the USvsHate challenge deadlines, which are here on the slide. We invite and look forward to messages from your students, actually in any medium, not just poetry, that they might produce after working with Where I'm From. You can also submit directly to Georgella's I Am From project. They're collecting poems from across the country. And the Across the Great Divide project that Steve and Amanda just shared, poets who submit to either of these opportunities may be invited to put their work later on that story map to show voices uplifted from across the country. So what we want to do we have Georgella back? A little trouble getting her in and out. Is she with us?
I can see you. Can you not?
Yes, great.
Okay.
We would love to hear you read the Where We Are From poem that you have quickly assembled, and then stick around, folks, for our breakout rooms after, and we'll introduce those after she reads.
Okay, well, I have to say that this is my first experience with the Padlet, and the Padlet disappeared. Sarah helped me. But anyway, so I didn't get to do this as well as I hoped to, but here's what I've got. So here's what we've got. And there could be so many different arrangements of this. And this is not the, there's no best. This is just what I could do in the time that we had. I am from rainbows and shadows, from warm summer nights, barefoot. I am from that pepper smell on trees, from water maples gone green to gold to spoiled banana brown and a whirl of papery helicopters. I am from Sunday morning biscuit dough, cut with whiskey glasses in Great Uncle Bob's trailer, a tiny house before tiny house was cool. I am from silly voices and walks, from pained discussions, teaching clarity to others. I am from love and loss, from my father's strength and my mother's faith. I am from dust on the windowsill, years forgotten, from my grandmother's wisdom passed to me by my father, who has never stopped missing her. From an immigrant farmer purchasing land and helping it grow, the legacy of love and a multitude of family, and a witness of the land sale, piece by piece, decades later. I am from chaos, mediated into resilience. I am from a selkie stolen by a smitten man, from white boots and wild mushrooms. I am from You Got This, Babe, from hand-sewn matching dresses made by my mom for my sister and me. I am from tall trees and the bee's knees. I am from a place I now only visit, from old orange groves, the delicious smell of orange blossoms on Orange Grove Road, from skinned knees and cul-de-sac kickball tournaments, from candlesticks used and unused. I am from maple syrup on snow and laughter, from Roland and Anna and Jim. I am from a place, but I am not the place I'm from.
Oh my, that was amazing.
Well, it is amazing. And I tell you, I was trying to use every line that came up, that printed from the Padlet. If I missed anybody, it's because I couldn't read my own numbers. So this was actually all the lines I had. So if you didn't hear yours, I'm sorry. It just got lost in across the Great Divide, I guess, between the Padlet and the page. But just from that, you see the wealth of possibility and what riches
we might find in one another. I think we lost our poet again for the time being, didn't we? So what we want to do, if you keep scrolling a little bit, you can explore these things on your own. You should have the slides. Angela, you could put them in the chat again. We have support communities for you to join. We have places for you to submit student work on these slides. And now we have the last, if you go one more back, our next event. Please join us with Welcoming Schools and the Human Rights Campaign with the theme Standing Up for Each Other. And finally, we want to invite you into a breakout room if you would like to talk more with any of our speakers. So again, George Ella obviously is our poet star. Steve and Amanda from City Lore. April was talking about working in the Appalachian region with his poem in all age groups. And Artemisa was talking about her first efforts with it in a bilingual setting, in this case with fourth graders. So thanks a million for joining us we have really found this powerful. I think all of us who organized it, and join us in a breakout room. Angela and Dana are going to create them for us. There is a link there if you want to give us feedback. This is our second session in our series. We're learning how to do this, what works most for folks. So please check out that link if you would, and give us a little bit of feedback on how it supported your work. Great. So I think we're going to head into breakout rooms.